Heading into week 11 of the NFL season, who are the really dominant teams in football, and how do you really know? This is Cold Hard Football Facts on Football Nation. Hi, everybody. I'm Butch Stearns of the Pulse Network. He's Kerry Byrne, the purveyor of pigskin of Cold Hard Football Facts. You know how to tell who the dominant teams are in the NFL. You of all soothsayers when it comes to professional football. Why is that, Kerry?
Purveyor and soothsayer all in one episode. I'm very excited, Butch. You know, one of our great stats we have at Cold Hard Football Facts is our relativity index. It tells you how well you score points and how well you play defense relative to the quality of your opposition. But, you know, some teams score a lot of points, but they play a series of bad defenses. Conversely, some teams look good defensively, but they're really playing bad offenses. The relativity index allows us to tell the difference.
So we're going to look at offenses, defenses, and then the overall team when you add it all up together. Let's look at offenses first. And some surprises here on this top 5 list, according to your relativity index.
Yeah, well, definitely no surprise at number 1. The Patriots, the number 1 scoring offense in football. Also, number 1, when we look at the quality of the defenses they've been playing, their opponents give up on average 22 points per game. The Patriots scoring 33.2 points per game, 11.2 points better than we might expect. But the true surprise, Butch, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a great statistical surprise story of 2012. Number 2 offensively when we take into account the defenses they're playing week after week.
And the Chicago Bears in number 5, that's a little surprising. I wasn't really thinking of them as a relatively good offense.
Well, you know what? We look at all points scored. You know what I mean? The scoreboard, as we like to say, the scoreboard doesn't care who scores the points, only that they get put on the scoreboard. So all those defensive scores have really helped that Chicago defense, that Chicago offense look a lot better than maybe it really is on paper.
So when we look at the relativity index for offenses, there were a couple of surprises. When we look at the relativity index for defenses, there aren't really any surprises. These are the top defenses in football, except for the fact there's only one team from that lowly AFC.
Well, you know, I think we all agree right now, for the most part, the best football is being played in the NFC, including the best defensive football. We seem to see a lot of, you know, the 49ers, the Bears, teams like that, the Seahawks playing great defense. Even the Atlanta Falcons, Butch, how about that? Number 4 on our relativity index, when you look, they're playing a lot of really good offenses, teams putting up a lot of points. They're holding those teams a touchdown below their scoring average. Now, again, the Atlanta Falcons, a pretty good defense right now, and Houston, of course, the only AFC team on that list right now.
And the last team on that list, the Seattle Seahawks. While it's not a huge surprise, we all know Seattle has a good defense. Is that the latest stat of yours that tells people maybe you should be taking notice of the Seattle Seahawks?
Well, I'm kind of really intrigued, and we'll talk a little bit more about the Seahawks in another segment, but I kind of find them really fascinating. The concern being, of course, they play so well at home. They do not play the same on the road. That has to be a concern going forward in the playoffs. But right now, a great rookie quarterback, leading the NFL among rookies in touchdown passes, putting up great numbers, and a pretty good, solid defense, even on the relativity index.
All right, so all your Cold Hard Football Facts numbers are the numbers that correlate directly to victory. Your relativity index is a good one because you preach that it's a good stat to look at what you do relative to your other opponents. Now we look at relativity index with the overall team, because the last time I checked, Kerry, you don't just play offense or just play defense, like Patriots fans would like here in New England them to do. If the offense could play defense, they'd be better off. Look at the top 5 teams in football according to the
and I think still the surprise, Chicago number 1, and of course they lost to Houston Sunday night. But you know what? They lost to a team that had been beating up. They lost 13-6 to a Houston team that's been beating up a lot of opponents. So that loss didn't really hurt them that bad. Still the number 1 team in football, outscoring, you know, but when we look at how well they're outscoring their opponents. And again, all those defensive scores make a difference. New England, to me, the real surprise in this, even with that defense struggling as badly as it is, that defense still performing slightly better than you might expect, you know, compared to how their opponents usually score points. So Houston, Atlanta, San Francisco, I think all 5 are Super Bowl contenders. No surprise. And by the way, talking about the correlation of victory, few stats in football predict winners more often than the relativity index. Last year predicted winners in almost 70% of all NFL games, down a little bit this year, but still, if you look only at the relativity index, you have a good idea of who's going to win and lose on Sunday.
And you've been saying this, you've been preaching this since the preseason, but when I look at the top 5 teams in the relativity index, 3 NFC teams, Chicago, Atlanta, and San Francisco, but number 2 and 3 are New England and Houston. You picked Houston to go to the Super Bowl before the season. You've been earmarking Monday, December 10th, Week 14, the Houston Texans coming to Foxborough to play the Patriots. With those two playing and looking at your relativity index, that really is maybe the marquee game of the year, at least from an AFC perspective.
Definitely in the AFC, and I think we might have saw the statistical marquee game Sunday night in that, you know, some people might say it was a boring Texans-Bears game. But I kind of like that. You know, we don't see enough old school football, so I like that. I think the Houston-New England game is really going to be in the AFC, kind of the intra-conference equivalent of that. And really, to me, the game all year, I have those two teams going the AFC title game. I've had them since the beginning of the year, and this is going to be a great test in a couple weeks of who really is the best team in the AFC.
He's Kerry Byrne of Cold Hard Football Facts. I'm Butch Stearns of the Pulse Network. Who are the really dominant teams in the NFL? It's all relative, according to Cold Hard Football Facts.